So one of the consistent comments that I get on my YouTube videos is, Steve, you're such a great planner. And I thought in this video I would completely shatter that illusion, because I'm a great believer that plans never survive contact with reality. And although I like to have a rough outline plan of what I'm going to do, I really don't plan at very high levels of detail. And I try and mitigate the lack of planning by growing quite a lot of extra seeds so that I can respond to things going wrong or opportunities that arise. So let's take a look round and see some good examples of that in the garden right now. So the best example in the polytunnel is this bed. This was a bed of test lettuces. I expected to still have these in production in March, but I didn't. I pulled them up in December and I put these spare lettuces in here. These are Novara, and they've grown on beautifully, and I shall be harvesting them in February. And yeah, so this is a great example of having spares and not leaving things in the ground that are not really going to deliver. It's all too easy to keep saying to yourself, well, they might pull through, they might improve, I might get a harvest. But in a lot of cases, in your heart, you're not going to get a good harvest. Best to pull it up, put something else in. So the next example is this bed, and this bed was full of Herbostella and turnips. The turnips were fantastic, but the Herbostella, well, it really didn't make the cut in terms of a veg that we really raved about. We didn't really want to eat it. We just put it in smoothies and things, but anyway, we decided to pull that, and again, the rest of that tray of Novara lettuce went in here. And the nice thing is now I've got two really great beds of Novara, which I didn't expect to have, and that lets me clear some other beds and plant some new stuff in February. So here's a bed that's looking very sorry for itself right now, and this is chard, and this will pull through and actually give us a good harvest in spring. But most of the people who really love chard, we're not growing for now, because we've reduced from 28 down to 14 people. So I really don't need all this chard. But so I thought, what can I put in here? Something fast growing. So I thought peas. Peas are the thing. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 strips of peas down the centre, lettuces down the edges, and still leave this little low tunnel on because the peas will really like that until probably April time. And that'll give me a great little harvest of early peas that I wasn't expecting to have. So this is a bed I didn't expect to have at all, but I decided to put it in at the last minute in autumn, and it's full of purple sprouting broccoli, which I actually transplanted into this bed when the plants were actually quite big, so they're about 18 inches tall. And I also put some cauliflowers in that would, again, these were just spares, and these have been useless. So you can see they're all dying back now. I'm not going to get any cauliflowers from these. And I'm not planning to replant this bed until July, when I put my beetroot in, maybe middle of June, for storage. And so I'm thinking I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to put early potatoes in here, first earlies. And so this coal frame's a nice little example. So in here I did have lettuces, and I was expecting to be eating these lettuces right now in January. So I put them in. I wanted them to grow to maturity. There were varieties that actually I'd always had pretty good luck with, so Grenoble Red and Roxy, but for some reason they all got some sort of slimy mould. This almost never happens to me. They were well ventilated. I don't really know what caused it, and as I said, I don't really care. What I did was I just put these little baby sprout plants in that I always have around. These are spares because I grow these for leaves. They're a fantastic brassica leaf crop in the Hungry Gap. So rather than get upset about a failed lettuce crop, I thought, yep, I'll put those in, my favourite crops. And then in this side, I'm just going to put some cauliflowers in. I've got 5 cauliflowers to go in there. They're just hardening off at the moment. So that was a great outcome. So this little bed here is one of my overwintered carrot beds, and I was having an issue with the carrots that I couldn't harvest them because the ground was frozen. So I put this little cold frame lid on here and the ground's no longer frozen, and so the carrots are keeping better. I chopped all the tops off because I don't want them all going mouldy, and this is going to be one of my early onion beds, so I'm going to need this at the beginning of April. But what I realised was, as soon as I'd put the cold frame top on here, was that maybe if I harvested this bed nice and soon, then I'd be able to plant radishes in here and turnips. And I wasn't planning to do that, I was planning to leave the carrots in. But what I decided to do was just swap things over, so I left those carrots in for the later harvest. And I've been pulling these, and in 2 weeks' time I'll have pulled all those out. I'll put turnips and radishes in, which are currently growing at home. And yeah, so I should have a really nice early radish crop before I put the onions in April. And that's all possible because I've got a spare cold frame top, which the radishes are definitely going to need to come to maturity that quick. And then this bed is my second early strawberry bed, and when I put this in, we didn't anticipate giving up Jennie's plot, but then when we did, we realised we don't know where to put the garlic. So I've interplanted the garlic into this bed, and you can see it's all breaking through really nicely. And obviously this is going to have a cold frame top on in probably March time, and at that point I think the garlic are actually going to quite enjoy that bit of extra shelter, and as a result I might even get some early garlic. So this bed is going to be French beans and runner beans, and I won't be planting these out until June. And the reason I leave it a little bit late is because we still have some pretty foul weather in May, but also because I've got early French beans and runner beans in the Polytunnel, so I'm in no desperate rush to get them outside. So I think, I don't want to leave this bed empty, and those are looking pretty scrappy, those spring cabbages, and I've got 40 other spring cabbages scattered around the back garden and the plot, so I really don't need those spring cabbages to heart up. So I think I'll harvest those for spring greens, and then I'll get this bed replanted. And I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to put in here, but I'm thinking quite likely calabrese and maybe cauliflowers. And in order to get those to maturity by June, I think I'm going to take this little low tunnel top here, which is currently over kales, and these kales, they're not going to need any protection by February time. In fact, they probably don't even need it now, and so I could move that tunnel over there as soon as I wanted to, basically. And then finally this bed. Now this bed's only got field beans in it. It's going to be sweet corn and winter squash, Crown Prince winter squash, and the field. I'm not going to need these field beans in in about March time. I'm definitely not going to need them. So I'm thinking, what can I put in here that will grow to maturity and give us a good harvest between March and June, when I put the squash in. And I'm thinking, I know what I can do. I've got all of these perennial kale cuttings, and I only need 3 to replace plants that I've already got, and so that gives me loads, and I could put all those in and they'll give me a lovely harvest. I could actually start harvesting these now if I wanted to, but from March until June they're going to give me a really nice prolific harvest of lovely tender kale leaves, exactly when I want them, in the hungry gap. So what I'll also be able to do is, when I actually take those plants out the end of May, I have loads of cuttings to give away. So that's a really good idea. So there you go. I don't really see myself as a planner. I'm not very accomplished, But what I do see myself as is a strategist. Now, I actually worked as a strategist for about 10 years before I retired, and a good strategy is resilient to uncertainty, and there's so much uncertainty in gardening, and so you can kind of mitigate that uncertainty, you know, the risk of pests, the risk of disease, the risk of bad weather, the risk, you know, just all sorts of different failing modes in gardening, aren't there? And you can mitigate those by having lots of spares, growing things in multiple locations, growing lots of different varieties, growing those varieties in multiple successions, having covers that you can use to protect things, you know, all sorts of strategies, and that's just some of the things I've just shown you now. So yeah, I think I'm a strategist, I'm not a planner. So hope you like that quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.